So it'll start shortly here. All right. Welcome everyone to AAC in the Cloud 2023. We are very pleased to have Zoe Pardoe. I hope I got your name correct.
Correct.
And she's going to be talking to us today about practical implementations of AAC within a busy special school. So this is going to be awesome. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Cheers. Here we go. I'm going to try and share my slide and it's going to work beautifully. Positive thinking for us. Slideshow. Right. Do let me know if it's not working, won't you? But hi, I'm Zoe, and I'm going to talk about my special school. I'll give you a little bit of a brief about what my special school is like because I'm from the UK, and I should imagine there's differences. Okay, so it's a generic special school, and that means we have needs across the board from individuals with PMLD or complex needs, right through to students who will be accessing the national curriculum, but with additional needs. That's aged between 11 and 19. My learning groups are vastly different, and we break it down into 4 areas where we've got our sensory learners, PMLD students, our emergent learners, where most of my communication work is based, semi-formal students, and our formal students, which we do have some AAC users that are formal students. Okay, I have a massive task because I'm actually a classroom teacher, as well as being the schools and districts AAC specialist. Okay, I got my qualifications from Manchester Metropolitan University as an AAC specialist. We had 315 students in my school, and 147 of them use some form of AAC. Not necessarily all high-tech devices, but the aim is to give them a robust vocab as they go along as soon as possible. Okay, so my role within school is training staff, supporting parents, AAC assessments, reviewing communication needs, putting together communication passports, working with teachers that are struggling within their classroom to support communication, and planning a communication curriculum, problem-solving AAC systems, and the focus on core words. So it's a lot, really, for one person. Okay. And that it's the time scale that I have to be able to work on all that is only 3 hours a week, and I'm not sure what it's like for everybody else out there, but 3 hours a week isn't very much for the 147 students when you consider that I'm teaching full-time as well. So how do I do that without crying? I'm going to try and break down what I do and how I get the whole team involved, using the usual approaches people do, but also a big shout out to all you guys there, because you guys out there are making resources that makes my world easier and therefore makes all my young people have a way of communicating. So thank you to you all for making those resources and making them available to the wider public. Okay, let's go. So I can't do it completely on my own, although I overhead it. Of course, it takes an AAC team, starting first with the AAC user, who has to be at the centre, then their friends, and we do quite a lot with peer support. Now, this might not necessarily be another AAC user, but we aim to do that. But sometimes it may be a formal student coming in to help an emergent communicator. That might be sharing their favourite books and then modelling on a communication system, or it could just be telling jokes or helping them move around the classroom to very simple things like plugging in their AAC systems with them. And then it's, of course, teachers, the classroom supports and TAs. I think you call them something different, but the classroom assistants for us, the speech and language therapist, all the staff in general, parents, family, carers, peers. And I always sort of forget to mention the involvement we have with people that do respite for our young people. That might be other agencies, or it might be aunties and uncles or cousins and nephews. So make sure I involve them in the training. Wherever that young person is going to need to communicate, which should be everywhere, they need to be involved. I found the most useful training that I do is using the impact model. All this is referenced and behind, so the correct people are giving the credit. If you look on the last slide when they're handed out, the impact model is basically suggesting a drip approach. For people that are really engulfed in the AAC world, it's really tempting to just pour that information at people, and then it becomes a massive task for them, and then it fails because they feel like they've already got too much on. I mean, how many of us teachers now think, oh, I've got this, and now you're going to give me this to do as well. So I will focus at the beginning of each training session on 1 or 2 points, and that'll be it really, other than remodeling what we've talked about before, and then going to sharing and supportive topics about what's going well, what's not going well, and making all the people supporting that team feel valued and important. Because if they believe they can do it, then the young person using the AAC system is more likely to succeed. Some of the things that have made a massive difference that are really easy to implement, I'm going to talk about and share. And it's about being able to share those things and me still have breathing room to teach and have a life outside of my job. So one of the things that are really working right now for us are words of the week, and out there in the world of AAC online, there's so much resources already done. So it's about reframing that with English spelling and using it in a practical way. Okay, and then raising awareness. My boss is amazing and she's really behind me, and because of the head teacher being that involved, it enables us to really raise the awareness of AAC, so everybody in school knows about it, whether they have an AAC device, whether they even teach an AAC user. They're aware of the word of the week. They're aware of our AAC users going around sharing jokes. They're aware of the person that we're highlighting as a great communicator this week. And they congratulate each other and they involve each other and they want to be a part of that team. Okay. So 147 kids is a lot. And I've broken it down into 4 tiers. This is not a hierarchy. This is just for me planning. I found it much easier to know where my 4 groups are. So when I'm relaying information, I know which teachers work mostly with tier 1, which teachers and TAs work mostly with tier 2, and so on and so forth. And then it's easier for email groups. So when I'm sending emails out, all the tier 1 gets that information, all the parents that their young person's in a certain tier gets it, but the tier is just for my benefit. There's no hierarchy. So for us, tier 1 is a low-tech communication boards, communication books, lots of visual symbols, but highly important, a total communication approach. I'm going to give you a bit more insight into that, but I should imagine you all know what a total communication approach is, but not all my teachers did. So the visual communication system within tier 1 is massive. It is throughout school, whether you are in an emergent classroom, a sensory classroom, or a formal classroom. This visuals, as we know, help everyone communicate, not just those that have any form of communication difficulties or are non-speaking students. It helps everybody. I myself am epileptic, and I'll put my visuals things on the board, and if I'm feeling off or having auras, it helps bring me around. It makes me feel safe knowing what's happened with the visuals there. So if it helps me, I can quite relate to how it might help people with communication difficulties. Okay, we use visuals to support people when they're feeling anxious, like I just said then, myself and for the other students, and to support behaviour. But I try so hard not to get my staff and TAs and classroom to get confused by what the visuals are, and that they're there to support communication and not give instructions. It's not you finish, that's it, you're not doing it. It's to communicate that this activity is finishing. I might lead the finish, but they also have seen me model it. So they may lead, actually, I don't want to do the pen activity. I finished, and then maybe on a cardboard or on lanyards that staff have, or on every desk there's a start, finish, and a very basic communication board. And that enables us to support their anxiety and any behaviours that might challenge people, such as sitting on the floor or throwing things. If they're able to say they're finished, then they don't need to use the physical communication of sitting on the floor or throwing and things like that. We use symbols for their favourite toys and activities that they have and they have available in their communication bags. so that they can ask for how to regulate themselves or things that they might want to play with. And we also use symbols like toilet symbols on every doorway, not just in the emergent classrooms, every doorway, because we never know where our communicators are going to be during the day. They may have walked into the wrong classroom looking for support for the toilet, and if they have no means of saying that because they've left their iPad somewhere or they've not got the communication book, or an unfamiliar member of staff, I know and my team know we've modelled toilet symbols and they know how to ask for such things. Okay. We do use visuals to support behaviour, although that's not going to be my focus today. But I just wanted to highlight, when we're talking about supporting challenging behaviour, that it's important to teach it the skill beforehand. I've just watched a brilliant presentation, I think it's from Kate yesterday, and she talked about teaching her AAC users online to express emotions and feelings and how they might feel during this and what that might look like for them, and getting them to work with their communication partner, parent, carer, to practice doing that. And that's exactly what we do in our classroom, but probably not half as well as you, Kate, but it's just really important to make sure that we're modelling those skills, so when they are in, for want of a better word, crisis, they've got the skills needed to communicate, to help re-regulate themselves. And we do that by role play, silly games, storytelling, and I quite love pretending to be angry and getting them to pretend to be angry, then modelling it using their iPads or core boards. And then problem solving. So when they're regulating themselves by bouncing on a ball or going on the swings, oh, you look happy, you look calm, you like the ball, and discussing it while modelling around them. Everything's modelling. Okay, and I'm going to demonstrate that now. This young man here struggles being in a classroom. It's very difficult for him. And the staff are trying to help him learn how to communicate that. This is a couple of years ago. So this young lad used to run out of the classroom and regulate by playing with soil or going on a swing. And that, as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. He's telling me the classroom's too difficult and he needs a bit of a break. But what we'd like him to be able to do is to tell us rather than just shoot off. So we're supporting him to have access to that and get what he requires to regulate himself. So the members of staff here are showing it in for the very first time, and she has an outside symbol, and for the life of me I can't remember what the other symbol is, but two contrasting ones, and she's not going to make him do anything. She is just modeling it. We're not going to make them communicate, we're going to give them the skills by modeling it, just like we do with small children. Let's have a look at Ewan.
Ewan looking. Ewan, looking. Do you want to squeeze or walk outside? Walk outside? What does Ewan want?
Told him walk outside. You going to get your coat, Ewan?
Coat on. You go get your coat. You go get your coat. You go get your coat. What are you doing? Yeah? Coat. Come back. You're coming.
And then Ewan makes it outside. So what I do by filming this is, and I enable the young woman that's working with him, Christina and Linda, to watch this back together, and we can look at what modelling went well, where the teacher had to further, well, how she felt we had to further interject to support his communication, but more importantly, highlighting what went well. Ewan had something he wanted to communicate. They read his body language and his behaviour and gave him a method of communicating it by simply modelling it and then going along with what he wants. And then now, today, 3 years later, he will go to the door, he will find his outside symbol, and he'll hand it to a member of staff and go outside. He's starting to vocalise out now as well, which is brilliant, but not essential. There's no hierarchy in it. So let's watch it again and see how Christina is showing him the symbols and giving him a choice, reading his body language. You can see how he takes Linda's hand, and that's a cue to say, oh, he definitely wants to go outside.
Ewan looking. Ewan, looking. Do you want to squeeze or walk outside? Walk outside? What does Ewan want?
Told him walk outside. Go to get your coat, Ewan.
Coat on. You go get your coat. You go get your coat.
Okay. So once we've watched that video back with the staff, we'll reflect on what goes well, what they felt might not have gone well, what they want to achieve, and how they think it would benefit you, and or what might benefit you. And next, putting them in charge of how they're going to support their user to use AAC, their communication student to use AAC successfully. And in doing so, Chris is clearly quite happy to take the lead, and she's quite enjoying that. And it's not perfect. And there's points in it when I'm watching videos back where I would love to say, oh, maybe you could have, could you see that? But I just simply don't. I focus on the positive and help them find that direction. They do find the direction. They eventually follow his lead more and then support it without being the communication lead and allowing him to initiate. But it's a drip, drip, slow journey. And then they can celebrate that success. Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to make sure that Ewan and all the other students are heard. We acknowledge them. If we're not acknowledging them, or we're failing to acknowledge them in any communication instance, and that keeps happening, they start disengaging. They won't. How many times would you try and tell your partner to pick up the mucky socks and put them in the bin before you got cross? How many times do our students need to try and communicate before they think, you're not listening, so I'm just going to go and do it? Okay. So when we first start using an AAC system, the AAC user needs to know what they will get, that they'll get the thing when they're asking for it, or acknowledgement when they're asking for it. It may seem to you that it's entirely one-sided. That's okay, and it is, but until they find a purpose and enjoyment in communicating, they're not going to. So it's getting your teachers to step away from the need to teach and focus on what they want to learn and see the importance of communication for that student. Obviously, I do let my teachers say no to an AAC user. Sometimes it's not safe to do so. Sometimes it's not available. We support this with visuals of, so if it was raining and they wanted to go outside, we might show them why, because it's raining, happens a lot in England. And I also make sure there's an AAC system that they're aware of and have used and been modelled on everywhere. That helps as well. And we spend a lot of time building vocabulary understanding and contextual learning using the total communication approach. So every time a member of staff is modelling something, or the core word of the week, we make sure that they have the resources to model that language and activities provided to them to be able to model that language, and the links of where I found them and used, and the sites I found useful are linked below. Okay, so we have a whole school approach. And we have our core groups, and we're going to say core groups, level groups, like where they focus on the maths and English skills in formal, our communication skills in emergent, and our developmental and physical skills in our sensory groups. And we start this day right, and we do it the same every single day. So that AAC user, that individual knows when they go to that lesson on a Monday, they will go through their timetable, not to give them instruction on what they're going to do, but let them know what they are doing and give an opportunity to talk about it. I have a lovely young man that absolutely hates the sensory feedback for messy play, and he has messy play on his timetable. We haven't removed it because we're using it as a communication thing. So when we put it on, see, you look sad. I said, oh, you look sad. Do you not like messy play? And that gives us that engagement back and forth. And we talk about how he doesn't like it. He normally goes, no, 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 and yuck, which is brilliant. And then we find him a different activity to do within that space, allowing him to control his environment by communicating, rather than what it would be before, and him having to feel and explore things that sent horrendous feedback through his system and didn't want to do and caused challenging behaviour. But by supporting him to express himself, it makes such a great difference. All lessons have a visual structure, which I'm going to show you next, so that we know what's expecting throughout the lesson, not to tell them what they're doing, as in you will do A, B, and C. It's not a checklist. It's to let them know what we're doing, and we can communicate whether we like it or we don't like it, or when we get to finish working and Zoe will be quiet and we can go on his iPad or his bouncy balls on things like that. AAC users have their own visual timetable that matches. That way it gives them a chance to talk later on with mums and dads, what they've done that day, or with their pastoral teachers. Pastoral teacher are their core teacher that they see every morning, every dinner time, and at the end of every day. And it gives them the chance to talk about those things. Oh, I can see you've had English today. Were you reading a story? And that sort of discussion. I also make sure that we provide, this is one of those useful tips, a symbol trolley, which is headed by Christina, actually, who will make sure that their regular symbols are filled up, important symbols are there, and then she's the go-to person to get symbols for lessons or for students to support them in general. And it's there all the time. It's not locked in a special cupboard. It's available for anyone. I've had students that are formal students that have gone over who would on the surface appear to have no communication problems, but in crisis was quite angry and was able to show me with the symbols that they're really angry because they felt, ironically, a different teacher wasn't listening to them. Okay. So that's a lot of visuals, so many visuals. And on top of that, we are signing and using body language, doing smells and touch and on the body sign. But it's a lot of visuals to try and be in charge of that. So between Christina, who is in charge of the trolley in general, we have key stages. So different year group teaching assistants, that their responsibility, their job list is to check that that's on, and they get shout outs for making sure it's great or how it's working, and people thank each other for it. We have a cuddle mug that says thanks for your great work, and we make sure we're sharing that out. It's full of chocolates and things to celebrate each other's hard work and success. Okay. This is one of the timetables I was just talking about, and this young lady is going through her timetable. She's in charge of going through her timetable. She's telling people what she's got that day. To be honest, this young lady's quite happy to go along with it, but sometimes they don't want it when it comes to maths, the triangle and the circle. They're not interested in it, and they'll take it and they'll throw it away. Once again, completely wonderful communication opportunity. She is a prime example of telling you exactly what she wants and doesn't want. If you look at the body language there, and the second picture, she's putting her thumb in her mouth. She's sulking. She's upset about something on her timetable. She's told that it's not break time, and she's cross about that. So it gives us a chance to talk about it, and using the cardboard that isn't there, and her prox talker, she was able to say she wants to go out now. So she goes out for 5 minutes because she's communicated it. And if one of my students communicates something, we do it. Okay, and this is our visuals as well. One of the great opportunities to help teachers that don't often support AAC students is to use this structure. Each student greets each other. Each student greets a friend by giving their photo and saying hello, either with an AAC device or signing, basically however they want to communicate with their peers, and they put them up on the board. And then we go through what they're going to do that day. And if somebody shows excitement because we're playing Pop-Up Pirate, we'll stop, halt, and talk about how excited the young man is because he's playing Pop-Up Pirate together. And then also it helps us get to the point where we know we're leaving to the next lesson. So if one of the students in the class just wants to leave, we can talk about how that's next. We finish the game soon, and next we're going wherever. Okay. Okay. I get lots of, I don't know about you guys, I'd love to read the comments later on and find out, but how many of your teachers are struggling to tell the difference between communication or giving boundaries? And lots of them come, but you're letting them press buttons all the time, the button bashing. I feel like I can never say no. And that's on me. That's me saying their voice matters and you should listen all the time. And I've not supported the teacher to know how to say no. I'm saying teacher, but this is a group of people, not just one person. I'm not singling out one teacher. That it's okay to say no. We say no for lots of reasons. So it's something that I've had to put into the training course to make sure that I am modeling how to say no, because we have to say no. We might not be able to go out to get KFC because it's 4 in the morning and it's not suitable. We might not be able to run across the road to pet a dog because we don't know them and it's not safe. So saying no is vital, but it's showing no, but with a communication that they're going to understand. It's acknowledging their request and making sure that they know why no is being said, such as, can I have more crisp? No, it's empty, and showing them why it's empty. A heavy rating. Okay. One of my favourite things to practice currently, and it blows the staff's mind too much, is quiet waiting. Now, I don't know how many of you work in a busy special school. It's always go, it's always high stim, it's always crazy of moving around the building. So we're encouraging teachers at the end of each session to have 5 minutes of quiet waiting. That time where you sit and you've got your one-to-one, and we'll wait either quietly or doing small individual interactions. And it's giving the TAs time to re-regulate and calm themselves down, the teachers time to regulate and calm themselves down, and equally important, the AAC users. So then we're not busy rushing around, going from one thing to another, and then not acknowledging communication attempts from students because we are just shooting around. So it's to make sure we're planning a calm time for everybody, not just the student. Okay, the total communication approach is used by all our teachers. I love it because generally it means I can play and dress up and do silly things, as do my students. So if we're going to talk about too many peas, which is a story that we've wrote over here, I won't just say too many. I will get another ball and another ball and another ball. We've got too many till there's too much to hold, and we're all trying to hold peas. It's that actual symbolism behind it. Okay, so we use voice, facial, signs, pecs loosely, symbols, photos, music, objects, touch, taste, sounds and smells, to help them really understand the language. It's one thing to the words to be modeled by pointing to them a cardboard or their AAC system, but do they really know what that means? So by putting them and teaching them in context, engulfing them in that communication environment, they know what I mean when I'm talking about a superhero crashing, because I've crashed, I've made loads of sound, and they're going to do it too, and we're going to make it in a great game while we do so. Okay, we use gesture and sign, which for many of our students is their first and paramount go-to. That needs acknowledging. We can't have people saying use your device or use a cardboard if they're telling you that they want the toilet, for example. That is primarily a perfect, reasonable way of communicating. We do it all the time. Okay. Facial expressions. I love the comment at the bottom. We've got a member of staff that really wanted me to mention that we smile with our eyes. I'm sure you've been to some schools or some places, and it just feels like a family vibe. And we have that. And I'm fairly sure it's because we love our students. We really care deeply for them. So in a sense, they know we care. And it shows in your facial expression. Even if you're not smiling like a loon, they can tell that they're loved and supported and listened to. Pictures and symbols. I'm sure we all do that already. There's absolutely brilliant resources linked at the back from Pairdrop and other places too, where they're just great, already pre-made, already available for you, linked to each task. Use them. Don't make your life any harder. Use them, use them, use them. Okay. Love smelling smelly socks. It's really engaging. If you're talking about a story and it's got something smelly in there and they're smelling it, it's really hard to describe smelling things without actually smelling it. So it's a great, same with bumpy, same with soft, same with smooth. You don't get any better reaction of describing and communication when you're putting your feet in some jelly. Okay. Then we've got tier 2. Now this has been a really difficult journey for myself as an AAC specialist, but also I think it's been a necessary one. So for tier 2, we use a high-tech device, and Cringe, we focus on one device predominantly, not exclusively, but one device. Why have I chosen to do that? It's a robust system. There's lots of amazing robust systems out there. They have differences here and there, and we could argue back and forth which is best, which isn't the best, which suits which person's need, which one doesn't quite suit which person's need. But I chose this one because we already had licenses. It was already in use with some students. It's used from our feeder schools, our junior schools come up, and predominantly because I need to get 147 kids exposed to the language and all the teachers involved trained in these devices so that it's modeled across everywhere. And as much as it hurt me to single it into one device, it is beneficial for training purposes, for the use of the symbols being around, for the motor memory, and to train everybody basically. Okay. Oh, it was then. I didn't have to try and remember. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about what we do for as AAC users. Actually, I've not mentioned that. We have different job roles or we call it work placements, where our AAC users, depending on their level, will read to other AAC users and model their language. They love that. They'll be in charge of small activities where the AAC user will lead it, predominantly with more formal learners who will copy their friend and take their instructions. We have a caretaker who uses their communication system to pass messages on and do jobs. We have our weekly joker that will go around sharing a joke with people. And then we have I'm going to say cafe loosely, but we have a communication cafe where we have an AAC user take orders, and we'll go around and do so. But we have loads of opportunities like that where we should try and build in across the timetable so that everyone's having a chance to do these things. Okay. Then we've got tier 4, because I'm not exclusively just one app. I absolutely know that that's not going to meet everybody's needs, that we have got eTran frame users, we've got eye gaze users, we've got pod books and Proloquo to go text. We've got just, well, there's loads of, if I went on about it for ages, you'd all be bored of me. But we don't heavily have the staff to training all these different devices. So what happens then for that individual is they have a skilled team around them, which makes it harder for a teacher to be able to model and to do different things when they've got different people in the class. But that's life. But because I'm training a team around them, I go through their timetable with the amazing SLT and make sure that these key people that are going to be across all their core subjects are all trained for that individual to do so. And they take ownership of supporting that person to have their AAC. They take complete control over making sure that AAC user has everything they need. And any problems they raise, I jump at straight away to help. And it's to bridge the gap when Proloquo to go or low tech devices aren't working. And then I've got tier 4, because it's not enough trying to do just AAC. We do assault support with assistive technology. So this might just be access to computers. It might be exploring speech sounds. It might be your colourful semantics. It might be individual play sessions or small group sessions alongside the SALT team. And then I relay that information to everybody else. Yes, all that in 3 hours. So how have we done that? We've been working really hard this year to raise the AAC profile by celebrating our AAC star. And that will be a poster. It'll go out on the school website. It goes out to, of course, the young person and their family. And we really do celebrate that individuals. We do core words, and everybody does core words in staff briefing. I'll talk about core words. And in a sense, I set teachers fun homework we did here, and they all recorded sounds that they heard on their holidays for us all to listen to in class. We do fun and games days where we all do different games that support AAC users with them at the focus of it, but not necessarily highlighted as the focus. So they don't feel singled out. So they'll go into a room and we're playing a game or dress up, and we'll have a modeler that's modeling it on an AAC device to everybody in the room. So it's just made in every classroom more accessible. School jobs that I talked about, like an AAC user being a caretaker or sharing jokes and jollying people up, or the cafe. We have our non-AAC users, or the peers, supporting them. That's charging them and returning them with the AAC user. Having that, we've got a chat or quick phrase that's in the iPads where the peers will add things with their AAC user, and it's stuff that I might not be able to add as a teacher, but their peers might want to. It is a high school. It might be all those songs or slang language that they might want to use, and they make sure that their friends have the same language that they might want to use that we might not think of because we're really old. Okay. Sharing AAC information is so important in a busy school, and I try and make it as easy as possible. On our shared school server, all these tiers are listed. Each student that uses something in that tier is there with practical and easy printout activities ready for each teacher to do. They tell me their topic, and I then search your wonderful resources that everyone's made, and I make my own too, and have them available for that. And we've got a bank of all these resources to make everybody's life a little bit easier. Now we're going from there. Supporting communication at home. This is not relatively new, but my role as predominantly AAC has started in the last 2 years, and we now send Word of the Weeks home, where a list of activities, a way we might do it with practical examples on how to do it there, with YouTube links and videos of what's happened at school going to the parents. That's really helping them understand how we're delivering it, and it's putting them at the focus point. It's got that communication going back between me and their core teachers and the parents and carers. And then they come in and have additional training. I love doing additional training with parents and their young person and helping them communicate with them. Now, we also have an educational healthcare plan. I think it's IPEP, I think, for Americans, where it is, we have a communication focus point. This will be maybe a video, maybe, of the young person talking if they're not comfortable coming in. Or it'll be them coming in and sharing what they like and don't like and modelling how we've been communicating in class. Basically, highly focus on that student's viewpoint. Every person has this, and it's highly important if it's a communication student that's struggling to communicate, that they have that opportunity to do so. I can imagine it's easier, especially with challenging behaviour, to not allow an individual into what they deem as an important meeting, but it is their meeting and it is about them. So we make sure they come in and have their viewpoint. One of the most biggest moments for me is I've been working with a young man for about a year and a half. He didn't really want his AAC device. He used to throw it away, a bit like a lady that was speaking earlier who threw pencils at a speech and language therapist and didn't want to do it. He just wouldn't engage. And then we was doing a sensory smell lesson, and he realised he could describe smells. He went home that night and told his mum, who he'd been biting and kicking and pushing away for weeks, and we couldn't work out why, that she smells awful. She changed her perfume. She showered that night, cleaned everything off, and didn't use the perfume, and he's back to cuddling his mum. So that massive empowerment of being in an EHC meeting and sharing that parent view with a student enables him to say perfume awful, or he just said awful, smell awful, and then she works out what happened. His delight that he was acknowledged for what he was struggling with, and it supported that relationship massively. We try to focus on simple goals throughout the whole of school, simple things. I ask every single member of staff not to overcomplicate it. If you only model one word in that lesson, you're brilliant. I mean, loads of words would be fantastic, but just one word, that's better than nothing, isn't it? And it's focusing on your one person, and your little bit of modeling is going to make a massive difference to that young person. So if you only spend the whole lesson modeling the word go, I'm happy. And then very quickly, and absolutely love being able to engage with them all. Okay, this is my communication poster, what we do, which my head has put together and put up, which is brilliant. Raising profile, making sure all the information is shared, which is just crucial. And in every setting, not just within school, outside of school. Training everyone, which is a huge task. So we're doing the drip approach. We'll use videos, we'll reflect back on what's good, we'll do hands-on practice, we do positive feedback. If they come to my training sessions, they're not allowed to use the usual form of communication. They have to choose a different form of communication, so they're being exposed to it and having fun. We do whole school training on the basics of total communication and celebrating modelling and how it's great that we're suddenly a modeler. I make sure they're aware of why they're communicating. It's not just to answer questions in class. We shouldn't be using closed questions, and it's getting them to understand that and explore that. And then we have lots of opportunities for teachers to come on inside and do some modelling with us, with me and with other teachers that are confident in modelling language and how we build up and increase language. How important it is to expose them to that. So that one word's making a difference. And then we come and listen to my modelling talk and think, but I think I can do 6 different words. That's brilliant. That session. It's building that understanding slowly, drip. So I have a training schedule in which I focus on what I'm training. It does change slightly if the needs of the students different, but each year there's a focus point to build the understanding in a slow and helpful way with the videos. Okay, so this young man's new to the school, not the student, and the TA, and we're teaching him about modelling, and we're just using yes and no. Very simple, nothing very exciting really, but he's learning how to model that language.
No, do you want to take the power? Do you want to take the power of the drip?
You having some more, Egan? Are we going to do it again, yes?
Yes. Or no, you want more?
What?
Yes or no? Yes.
It looks like he wants it, doesn't he?
Yes.
Oh no, he's gonna pop.
So we look back at that video with that member of staff, and he'd looked at what he thought he did well, what he thought he could improve, and he highlighted all on his very own that he wasn't given enough time or space to the young person to do so, and it enabled him to wanting to focus this next time on space and giving them time to process. Okay, I'm not going to have time to go over the do's and don'ts, but it's one of the things that we do talk about in AS training, giving them time, waiting for response. Then we do staff training for teachers, which is slightly different, of course. We're going on a slightly higher level, the importance of descriptive teaching, use of open questions. I have lots of teachers that were telling me, well, they're not answering with it, and they're asking very closed questions about Pluto, the planet, rather than descriptive teaching. So teaching them about descriptive teaching and how the use of open questions, giving them an opportunity to try and answer their own questions using an AAC system, and quickly learning how actually saying what colour planet is much easier than trying to name things and coming away from nouns. Okay. So the whole aim for our school is to make sure that everyone has a robust system. I found it very difficult because it's not always possible in a busy classroom to support teachers to manage a robust system. When we've got individuals that have very quickly switched to YouTube and no longer wanting to eat toast or ask for toast or joining the maths game, because of course YouTube is much more engaging than wanting to do a maths game. And it's to teach the staff how they could work with the YouTube program they're watching to model that communication. Maybe your turn, you watch CBeebies, my turn, we're watching a shape song and I'm going to model it, and it's giving them that confidence to model and play. So our core teachers are our maths and English teachers. That's the people that I'm talking about. Yeah, and we talk about how opportunities that can model that don't necessarily think they need to do because they're already communicating that. So we have a place in school where the students are going to sit if they want some quiet time. We call it the blue benches because they call it the blue benches. And often they'll gesture that they want to go to the blue benches, and then we'll leave the classroom. And I'm not asking the teachers to stop them doing so. I'm asking the teachers, that's an opportunity to model. You want to go? I can see you want to go. Go to blue benches and modeling language and building it up depending on that user's communication level. And it's to show them how to model in something they're already doing rather than giving them extra things to do. I go in, I watch their lessons, I see how their lessons run, and then I literally put something in that will just slot in. So they're extending their communication and modeling of their communication. I mean, something that they're already going to do. So they have to think, oh, I'm going to do brain gym. This is what I'm going to model. And it helps them have that structure. And then I provide them with the resources to do so. Okay. With our TAs and communication partners, the training is a lot looser. It's a lot more fun. Other than talking about prompt hierarchy, I think it was shared recently, the updated version of prompt hierarchy, the least amount of support needed, basically, and giving time and space. It's more about having fun and learning how to use their system together to show that I don't know where every word is in this robust system. It's robust for a reason, and getting them to play with it. I love watching two peers explore each other's device, usually with silly words like poo-poo and boobies or whatever silly stuff they want to talk about. But it's great to see that, and it's showing that excitement and engagement. AAC users are less likely to drop out if they are using it with a peer and having fun, talking about the PlayStation non-stop or McDonald's or whatever they're interested in, using that as a motivation. So we have AAC peer group sessions, usually during break times as well. I've talked about how to model. Okay, so I'm going to talk about parents and family here now. This is where parents and family come in. They're involved throughout the whole process. The EHC meetings, they get weekly emails, but I make sure I continually reach out to all of them and make sure that they have access to AAC outside of the school environment, and that they're a part of the planning, that I know what the AAC users done that weekend, so I can help them communicate. It bridges that gap. Okay. And the final sort of thing that I make sure is really important is that the teachers believe that this person's going to succeed. They believe that their impact, however small that they think it is massive, and it's going to make a difference. And it's really, really pushing that belief system that they can do so. So it's highly positive is anything we do. We were highly, yeah, that was great. Oh, I can see you're feeling it's difficult right now because he keeps talking about his PlayStation. I remember 2 weeks ago you told me he wouldn't stay in the class, but now he's trying to share his PlayStation with me. That's brilliant. How have you done that? And turning that conversation into positive, but acknowledging that they're struggling at the same time. And it's worked very well to get them to be engaged and try and problem solve and want to be doing so. But most importantly, it's helping them remember to just keep it simple. Keep modeling. 1 minute a week in your session is better than none. To make it fun, no one wants to talk if it's boring. Try not for them to get discouraged and overwhelmed, but also us as the AAC or the SLP specialists not to get overwhelmed. We are one person. We have a team around us. Reach out and support each other, but don't get overwhelmed by it. If you get overwhelmed, we don't know where to start and we don't know what to do. If you're only one person, talk out to teams and communities and work to support each other. And feel free to email me with any questions or any resources that I've used. And I'd love to hear about how you guys in America support your AAC users more. It's been fantastic to be a part of you all and listen to all your viewpoints. Thank you. Question time. Don't know how to slap the slideshow. Do we have any questions? Let me see if I can see.
See, yeah. I did see some questions in there. We appreciate it. Let me take a look here. So I do. Well, there was a question, and I don't remember what part you were talking about, but Angela asked, "Do you jump in and model at all?"
Do I jump in?
Do you have different devices for the supporting staff as well?
Yeah, yes, we do. So every student that has an AAC device will have at least 1 or 2 members of staff that have an AAC device that matches theirs. But equally, we have communication core boards, and they're available to match their AAC system. So it's not as robust, but it has, if you look at ProLoco to Go's website, they have a basic communication. It shows you the folders and the basic bits, a bit like a cough drop, really, doesn't it? You have a low-tech version too. And they use that to model if they haven't got an AAC device.
Yeah. Nice.
And they're everywhere. Everyone's bored of having them thrown at them all the time.
Well, you're immersing them in AAC. They're having it all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may have addressed this already, but families, getting them involved. Are you sending home ideas for them to model? Yes. So
I send a weekly AAC word of the week model, which, by the way, is a resource that someone's made. It's in my resources at the end. I've not made them. I've looked through the core words of the week plans. I've looked at what fits into the British timetable, and somebody has already got their activities, YouTube links, and practical ways of doing so, how you might model it when you're at home. I haven't made my job any harder. I've used your guys' amazing stuff and brought it to my audience and made sure that they're aware of it. 3 hours isn't enough time to not use your guys' amazing work. And I email it out to parents. Yeah. And they tend to come back and do a bit of work with me or send me videos of it working at home, which is brilliant. And it really builds our core teachers and everyone else's enthusiasm because they can see it happening at home. Okay. Check to see if there's any more, because Scott seems to have disappeared. Don't give up. Yeah, it's so important not to give up and highlight that not giving up. I've had so many AAC users to begin with that don't want to use the system, and then the staff are going, well, they're pushing it away. And I'm going, well, don't expect them to do it. Just keep modeling. Just don't stop. And then later on down the line, they are using it successfully. It's new, isn't it? It's new and scary. And if the best way to get something to stop or start is to be physical or to run out of the room, and it's more efficient for them because it's not an alien way of doing so, then they're going to do that. It's about not quitting and keep modeling it and being positive about it. And you modeling it for when you're talking and when you're doing things. I have lots of teachers that do really well modeling in the classroom with a topic they're doing, but then stop when they're talking to other teachers or non-AAC users or visitors that come in. I don't. I will keep using my iPad to model core words, even if that AAC user isn't looking like they're interested in what I'm doing. I'm trying to normalize it, make it fun. Okay. Is that no more questions? Well, thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. If you've got anything at all, please email me. I believe the slides are available, but if they're not, please put your email address down and I'll make sure I send them through. Keep supporting each other. You're all amazing. It makes my job a pleasure. Thank you.